The Icons of Real Estate Podcast. Are you ready to learn the proven money-making secrets from top-producing icon agents? Ready to skyrocket your business? This podcast is for you. Tune in every week with your host, Tomasz Fonseca, and find out how to implement proven strategies to 10 times your business. From $3 million to $30 million in just 12 months. Brought to you by the Masters at Real Estate Marketing, Arter SEO.
Welcome to the Icons of Real Estate. I'm Tim Calloway. We have a very special guest for you today from Southeast California, Cathy Muldoon with Sotheby. How are you?
Great. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day on a Friday. I assume you're having pretty good weather there in Southeast California, as you always do.
Yes, absolutely gorgeous.
Fantastic. So, if I understand correctly, Cathy, you deal in the luxury home arena, correct?
Correct. I sell so everybody knows Palm Springs, right? But the Coachella Valley has several cities, and I sell from Palm Springs all the way through to La Quinta.
Okay. So that includes Indian Wells, Indio, and all those areas, correct?
Yeah, Rancho Mirage, Palm Desert.
Love that area. Love it. I spent a little time there, not a lot, but I passed through a lot. And when passing through, you have to stop, right?
Absolutely.
Right. But it's wonderful. So let's start at the beginning, Cathy. How did you get started? Tell us your story. How did you get started into where you got now, where you're at now?
Yeah, great question. So I'm from Minneapolis, most recently before moving to the desert. And I had started my career always in a service-related industry. I started in retail after college and worked for several retailers, working my way up with Ann Taylor to a district manager. But I couldn't relocate at that time. And that was really the plateau of where I could go in my market. So I had to think about what next. And I discovered an executive search firm, which is a headhunter, for lack of better words. They go and find jobs for people. And it focused on the retail industry. So it was fabulous. So I joined an executive search firm, and my role was basically, I was hired by a company, and we would interview maybe 100 people, come up with 3 to 5 that they could hire. We'd submit them, and then we'd make that connection between the employee and the employer. And I evolved and had my own business for a long time. And when we made the decision for the weather
Right.
to move to the desert, I had to rethink about what I was going to do, because corporations were hiring me in Minneapolis, and the desert is not a corporate rich environment, right?
Right.
But what's predominant? Real estate. And it was a great fit for me personally, because instead of connecting homes or jobs with people, I was connecting homes. And a lot of similarities were involved in the process. It's a high stress, big decision for people. Right. You have to be able to negotiate. You have to be able to really make sure that there's a good fit, right? The worst thing I wanted to do when I was a headhunter was relocate a family across country if it wasn't going to be a good fit for them and wasn't going to make sense for them. So I take that same care and diligence in real estate, and I think that's really what's made me successful in it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love hearing that, especially when someone pivots. It's a big deal to pivot into something maybe you're not used to, but you can take all that experience that you garnered and turn it into, something successful.
Right.
So, yeah. So you really, I know, we talked a little bit before, and you really have a knack for creating relationships versus just selling. You live by that, right?
I do. It's so important to me. It means so much to me to be able to have a lasting relationship. It's not transactional. I learned that from my days in retail, where you know, some associates would just focus on that one dress sale or what have you.
Right.
And I keep a database. I kept a book of clients. I'd reach out to them when a line went on sale or something new came in, and I developed that repeat clientele. And I always found that works really well, and it's more fun. It's more fun to see people evolve over the years and buy and selling homes and seeing them reach whatever their goal is.
Yeah. Well, you really, and you can elaborate on this a little bit. I know your community well enough to kind of know it, but I don't live it, right?
Right.
And I've lived in some communities that would be considered mid-sized, and you really become friends with them. I mean, it actually kind of become
Yes.
part of your life, right?
Yes, we go to dinners, we connect when they come. So we're a second, third, fourth home market. So people are in and out a lot of times. There are definitely full-time residents, but a lot are not. They're in and out for what we call the season. And it's so much fun when they come back into town and you can get together, and it's not, you're with a person. Sometimes I've helped people for a year and a half before they've found a home, right? You can't help but develop a fondness and a connection. But during those times, or when you're selling a house, you're really focused a lot of what's going on, right? Updates and communication, but it's about the real estate. So it's really fun to relax and just enjoy each other's company outside of that when it's all done. And you can see them really enjoy their new home, or you can see where they've gone after selling, and that, maybe they've gone to a new destination or a larger home or a smaller home. But it's really fun to stay connected to people.
Nice. And it really becomes that for others mentality. You wake up every day and you realize I'm doing this for others, not so much myself. And
Right. Like I have and I realize, there are some agents who do very few deals, right? So there's a pressure there. I'm very respectful of that, one deal could be 25% of their income, and they have other
right,
pressures and stresses. I'm fortunate enough, I do a lot of business. So one deal, it isn't going to make or break me. So I can
right,
take that out of my head, and I can really focus on the client and their needs and achieving what they need to. If it's not the right house, it's not the right house. I'd rather have them fulfilled, and that will reap a lot more benefits, both personally, but also professionally.
right. So you do really, that is a very luxurious home market there, and this is just more for conversation than it is any kind of factual base. But because you are a realtor, you're in the industry. The nice thing about that area, I always felt there was plenty of room for everyone. I do know the home values well enough there that there are folks that they're in the mid price range as well as luxury. It's not just luxury, but
Right.
so it's a nice diverse area for sure, for sure. Um, so I was going to ask next. We talked about the past and kind of how you got to where you are now. Now we've had a really kind of crazy 2.5 years, right?
Yes.
That's maybe I
That's an
understated that.
understatement.
Yeah, I understated that, but I try to be coy because some people go, "Nah, it's awesome, man. What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Um, but we've had a kind of a crazy 2.5 years. Tell me how you've adapted to the ups and downs, and we all have ups and downs. Don't get me wrong,
Right.
but this has been in a very confined time frame, and things, as you say, shifting. The markets are shifting constantly, especially with the Fed recently. How do you pivot in that arena?
Yeah, great question. And, I think successful realtors do have to pivot and deal with change all the time, aside from just the past 2.5 years, because our market does cycle, right? It goes up, it goes down, it's never the same. So I think adaptation and the ability to like and embrace change happens to be in my personality, but it's a good foundation for anyone in the industry. And I think, if you have a siloed path or vision of what has to happen, you're really going to get thrown for a loop often, because so many things can change and you need to pivot and you need to keep everybody calm and collected and not take it personally, right? When something doesn't go exactly the way you thought it might, just embrace it and say, okay, well, where are we now and what are our paths for a great solution for everybody? I think one of the interesting dynamics, though, that did happen in the past 2.5 years, like what we're doing right now is Zoom, right? In the beginning of COVID, we really had to adapt as far as real estate agents to technology in a way that we had not done so before, because people needed to sell and needed to buy homes, but they couldn't get here, right?
Right.
So they weren't, it went from, or a pre-listing consultation. Normally you do that in person. You couldn't necessarily do that. And we had to get comfortable building a relationship without the vibe of being in person, but through Zoom or through FaceTime. And you really had to make sure, we did so many, or I did so many sales with a FaceTime video, right?
Mhm.
Where you're walking the person through the house and you're trying to see everything and show them everything, and having Google Maps and, you know, all of this technology,
Yeah.
we utilized much more efficiently, for me personally, than I had ever done before. And now, you know, I will always go to a Zoom call if I can't meet a person in person instead of a phone call now, because at least it gives us the connection of seeing one another.
Right. And that's important. That you when you, the word is connection. You know, the key
Yes.
word there is connection, and you have to have that connection. Obviously, in this industry, you have to have that connection. Maybe elaborate just a little bit more on the difficulty level, though, in creating that connection via a phone, you know, or a Zoom call on a phone
Yes.
versus, you know, you're walking me through the city and you're walking me through the home, which that's so powerful, you know. I mean, we've been
Right.
doing that for years, walking people through these homes, and you can see it on their face, and you can so difficult
Right.
via Zoom. Go ahead.
So I'll give you a little of advice that I used to give when I was coaching, you know, new recruiters, right? Because more than half, almost all my work was on the phone with candidates because they were anywhere in the country. It was very rare to find a candidate within the state that I was for the particular position. So I was on the phone all the time. You know, back in the day, we used to call it dialing for dollars, right?
Right.
You know, for recruiting.
Right.
And so you had to almost be in a situation where you could visualize via the phone that the person was right there. So I always said tones, right? Your tone of voice, smile. Even if they can't see you smile, it does change the tone and the pitch of your voice when you smile, and be energetic in your, you know, don't be like lying down or whatever on the phone.
Yeah.
And all of that raises your energy level, which helps your tone on the phone. And then finally, you have to pause, right? You have to be able to listen to and get that and ask more questions than maybe you would normally, because you can't, like, if we're together, I could see if you're looking confused, right?
Right.
Or if you're pausing with a question on your face. But on the phone, you can't do that, right? So you have to ask more questions. How do you feel about that? Or, you know, so what's your take on what I just said? And help yourself with those clues that you wouldn't get normally on a phone.
Right. No, I think that's great advice. So, if I understand correctly, you're solo, correct?
I am.
Yeah. So tell me about that a little bit. You know, you must be super busy then.
Yes.
How do you manage that day to day?
Yes. And don't get me wrong, Sotheby's has some great
Oh yeah,
support. You know,
for
I have
sure.
a transaction coordinator
Right.
who isn't my employee, but I go to. We have a whole marketing team, you know. Um, so I do have
Support.
support that
Yeah,
way.
for sure.
But as far as an agent, you know, when I'm a little bit of a control freak, so I have to probably say that uh, impacts my decision a little bit. I do have colleagues who I can rely on if I went on vacation or something. So because I don't like ever to be out of pocket for my clients. So if there's a time difference, I always like to have someone be accessible, but I don't go on vacation that often. So it's really managing your time blocking for one, giving yourself downtime and exercise time and quality of life. But when you're on your own, you have to prioritize really well and decide how you're going to approach each day. And everything can, you know, somebody might call up for a showing and you have to adjust, but staying organized, making lists, really keeping communication going all helps the solo person, I think.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like you've got a good toehold on it, so that's fantastic. So in your area, and here's the curveball. You know, I always promise, oh, don't worry, I'm not gonna throw you any curveballs, but this would be the closest.
All right, give it
We,
to me.
you wait. This is the closest we'll come to being throwing you a curveball. Tell me how just in the past 6 months things have changed when it comes to actual deals closing, you know, volume wise. I
Okay,
don't
yeah.
really yeah, I don't really want to get into the price of homes or anything like that, but you know, everybody's talking about it. There's two more Fed meetings, you know, in November and December. So, you know, how have things changed in the past 6 months over, say, last year, which was a great year for most?
Yeah, great question. So I think the biggest thing for our market has been inventory, right? A year ago, we practically had no inventory
Right.
for us. For in the desert, it was 1.25 months of inventory, which really, for anybody who isn't that familiar, they say a neutral market is 3 to 6 months worth of supply, right? If it's more than 6 months inventory, it's a buyer's market. If it's less than that, it's a seller's market. So if you think of a pendulum, we were way over on this side for a seller's market.
Right.
In just a year, and I know you asked for 6 months, but
A
you
year.
know, we're double the inventory or almost double. We're at 2 months supply of inventory. So it's still really tight. But I think the shift when interest rates changed, with in addition to inventory, where buyers paused a little more. It was not that frenetic of, oh my God, I have to make a decision in 15 minutes, right? I've got to go after anything regardless of the price. That is not happening anymore. Buyers are more selective. If the house is priced right for what it is, it sells very quickly still because we are still so low in inventory. But if it's off, you know, because it doesn't have the updates or the location,
Right.
you'll see more price reductions now. You'll see things sitting a little longer on the market if they're not priced correctly. And that's the biggest shift I think we've seen. And buyers are now, well, what's going to happen in the next few months, right?
Now they try to get that wait and see attitude, and it's like, well, you know, if you like the home, let's buy it. You know, I mean, that's the bottom line
Exactly,
at the end of the
exactly.
day.
And you'll see less 6 months ago, all contingencies were probably waived, right? And they were just anything the seller wanted, a lease back, anything. And now that's not, contingencies are back in place.
Yeah.
You know, people there's much more negotiation.
Yeah. So a lot of builders in the area, yes, no?
Yeah, we don't have a tremendous amount
Right.
of blank space, but Palm Springs, this city of Palm Springs certainly had a lot of lots available from a long history of leased land that the Native Americans had not developed, and you see now a lot of that being developed.
Nice. So
Yeah.
what are their time frames? Is that still pretty extenuous? I mean, are they still a year out on builds or?
Yes, they lost a lot of the inspectors for the city
Wow.
and supply chain delays. It's
Yeah.
much better than it had been. You're seeing less delays, but usually it's about 8 months.
Well, definitely sounds like a place I'd like to be. So anybody who's looking maybe to buy or sell in your area, or maybe they just want to contact you and ask you some questions about real estate in the market, how would they get?
Absolutely.
Yeah, how would they get in touch with you, Cathy?
They can either give me a call, which is 760-898-7290, or
Okay.
my email is Cathy with a C, and then my first initial last name at cmuldoon.com. And I extend that to agents as well as clients. If anybody needs to know more about this market or has questions, just reach out to me.
Okay, so this is the part where I throw it back to you and, let you give us the final word. This is your show. I'm just the facilitator. Anything you want to talk about that we didn't cover, or maybe a favorite pet you want to talk about? It's your floor.
Well, there's so many exciting things happening in the desert. And one of the really interesting things is our arena that is coming with a hockey team, ice hockey.
Oh,
I
wow.
know. But what I was really excited about is it's about 17,000 in capacity. It's in Palm
Okay.
Springs. And not only having a hockey team, it's going to have amazing music venues. And for anybody who knows Coachella and
Sure.
Stagecoach, we just get amazing musical talent here. So I'm super excited to have that open up.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm excited about that. I'm gonna have
Yeah, it's going to be
check
really
that
fun
out.
and different.
Yeah, definitely want to check that out. I told you before that I lived in Arizona for some time, and it
Right.
always cracked me up, that there was a professional hockey team in Phoenix. Where,
What?
where
I know.
the majority of people are like, oh, okay, what's this? And then now I'm in Southeast Florida, down in West Palm, and we have a
Oh,
hockey team here as well. But everybody's from up north, so it made sense.
yeah.
Everybody's
Yeah,
from up north.
Canadians, people
Yeah,
from Seattle. Is everything okay in Florida for
no.
you?
For me,
Oh,
yes. I'm on the southeast side. I'm between that and the Panhandle. We avoided. We did get a ton of rain and wind. I have a wicker chair that didn't make it. Okay, that's about
okay.
it. That's laughable. But no, pretty bad
Intense.
across Alligator Alley, if you know what that is. It's pretty bad. I mean, Fort Myers is
Well, my
gone.
heart goes out to everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. That's it, Cathy. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed hearing about your area and what you're doing out there, and definitely want to get a chance maybe later on to talk to you again and see how
Oh,
things
I'd
have
love it.
changed down the road.
I'd love it. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Cathy, you have a great weekend and be safe.
You too.
Bye bye.